Hello friends and welcome. It's Sarah Liz and I am back with part 2 of the Stepped Up Emergency Card Kit for November 2023. This is volume 19, the Handmade by tags. We have a couple pages of snarky handmade by and then just handmade with love. Some of those same sentiments as strip sentiments. Then we've got them in a circle or different sentiments, a lot of them because they're longer, going around in a circle with a to and from and without a to and from. We then have some general to and from tags that are meant to be cut into these sort of rectangular tag shapes, and I showed that in video 1. Today I'm using the nesting circle frame dies from Waffle. I just got this during their moving sale. If you don't have that, you could use these nesting circle dies and then just choose 2 that are 2 apart, right? So there's a 1/2 inch in that circle frame, and if you run them through at the same time you can get that little frame. And then I'm also using the Envelope of Wonder. You guys, I did not think I would get so much use out of that Envelope of Wonder set, but the florals are so beautiful. So I have cut, it's a 3.5 inch circle twice out of acetate. I'm using the Grafix shrink plastic. It is thicker and clearer than all of the other acetate that I have, but try whatever acetate you have. I just wanted these to be really sturdy because there's small children in my family. Okay, and then I'm going to attach the other frame to that. So the purple frame is a 3.5 inch die and a 3 inch die, essentially, that you can run through at the same time, or you can use the waffle flower frames. Once I have those 2 pieces, I'm going to set them aside for just a minute, and I'm going to build a piece for the inside. This is from kit 9. This is the sassy birthday sentiments, but this one just says happy birthday. It's not that sassy. Then from kit 19, I punched out one that says this took forever, so at least pretend to like it, or else. And then this is going to be on a gift for my sister. So it says to Susie from Sarah, and I am going to glue these back to back, and we are going to create a shaker, and we're going to fill it so full that you have to shake the shaker to figure out whose name is on the tag and who it's for. So I added glue to the back of the happy birthday, and I am just using my finger to make sure it goes all the way to the edges. I don't want any sequins getting stuck in between the 2 sides of my tag. And then this is normally how I double up foam tape, but guys, I made this twice. The first time I doubled it up and I just decided there wasn't enough room for shaker fill. So I am tripling up my foam tape. This is Therm, and so it's a little thinner than some. So I would say if you're using a really lofty foam tape, maybe it's just double thick. While all the backer paper is still on, I'm taking my old school anti-static powder bag and I'm rubbing it very generously on both sides so that my shaker bits don't stick. And then I am going to cut a sliver to go around my circle. I will say I needed to cut it a little narrower than half. And so just keep an eye on that depending on like what 2 shapes you use. You wouldn't have to use a circle here. You could use a square or a diamond or something like that. To get this to curve around, I'm removing both sides of the backer paper at this point. And this is just barely narrow enough to fit around there. And that was maybe something I could have checked before I took the backer paper off. But once I removed that, there's no cutting this without really gumming up my scissors. I was about 1 centimeter too short, you guys. I was so bummed. This is actually the second one I made. The first one, I just didn't have enough foam tape. I wanted more shaker bits, and I'm putting a ton in there, but I have magpie problems. That box, that's one of 3 boxes that are chock full of sequins. If I see them and I like them and they're on sale, I will buy them. And I've been doing it for 15 years. So I was like, you know what? We're going to go all in and just really fill this up and use the supplies that I have. I have put in my happy birthday face down, so it's kind of on the bottom, though it will move. And then I am putting tons and tons of sequins. These are old school ones that have the hole in the middle, and they're super cheap. And so they're kind of stuck together. So you can see me like taking my time to separate them out and making sure that they're not just going to all be clumped up in there. Then I will put just a really thin bead of glue around the edge of that foam tape. And I like to pick up the shaker and hold it in my hand because I can use my fingers on the side to make sure everything is lining up the way that I want it to. And now you can see like it's covering up the name, but if you shake it well enough, you can kind of uncover the name. In all honesty, I kind of wish there was more shaker fill in there, but I wasn't about to do it the third time. And I'm still really, really happy with it. So I'm using my CROP-A-DILE. It has a little 1/8 inch punch, and it's different than a regular hole punch in the way that it punches through there. So I'm punching it through the foam tape. So I'm not really creating a hole in my shaker, just in the foam tape and the frame. And then I have some twine. I'm going to try to run through that hole. I had a hard time with it at first. So I just added a little bit of glue to my fingers and rubbed that into the ends. And then I will set that aside to dry for a few minutes to let that kind of stiffen up so it's easier to get through that hole. Here are some florals that I have grabbed from the Envelope of Wonder. When I first got it, I made a ton of these. They went together really quickly. I wanted them in lots of colors. This is probably the 10th card I've used them on, and it's really great to just have them on hand. Some of these pieces are going to overhang the frame and just be out there in kind of no man's land, so I'm doubling up all of them. This green does not quite match the green that's going to go on top, and that's okay. I don't think anyone's going to notice. So I've added my glue, and I'm very carefully kind of pinching that together and figuring out where I want to put everything on this frame. And once I figure it out, I'm going to add glue only where I'm going to have cardstock touching cardstock. Because it's a shaker and it's clear all the way through, I didn't want you to be able to see like a gluey mess on the back side of the shaker. Then I will build up this little flower, and I'm just going to add it to its stem and then figure out where it's going to go. And I'll do a little bit of trimming to make sure it's going to fit really nicely. I love that big pink flower, and I've used some gold foil accents in the middles of those flowers just for a little extra sparkle and shine. Again, I'm being really careful here to figure out where it's going to overlap that cardstock frame, and I'll lay it down only on those parts. I kind of thought about adding some foam tape to the back of that pink flower and popping it up a little bit, but this just felt sturdier. So I went kind of heavy with the wet glue on this one because there's so much dimension in the leaves already, and I wanted to make sure it would stay on there really well. I am going to use my little pokey tool to help me get the string through the hole, and then once I get it through there, I'll just pull it through. It's both pieces. If I'd done just one, it would have been a lot easier, but I wanted to loop it through like this, and then I will tie a knot at the top and trim off the ends that got kind of mucky when I was trying to get everything sort of lined up and through that hole. As a final touch, I have a handful of these teeny tiny flowers that also come from the Envelope of Wonder, and I forget to use them on my project. So I have a disproportionate number of these little bitty ones, but I like how it creates kind of a visual triangle on my tag here. I know this isn't super quick, but this is what I will give to my sister instead of a card. And this was faster than a card for me. And I just think it's really fun. We are going to Thanksgiving at my parents', and there are like 10 birthdays we're celebrating at the same time. So it is going to be kind of fun for people to shake it and try to figure out who that gift is for. Next, we are going to create another sort of circular tag, and I'm using the Magic Iris Floral Wreath add-on. This is for the Magic Iris die set that sort of has a little lever and it opens up in the middle. I have that die set and I've never made it because I'm a little intimidated, but I have a bunch of the add-ons. There's not just a floral one. There's like a tropical wreath, and there's this beautiful snowflake one. There's tons of them. I will link a handful of them below. But I was like, let's at least put these pieces to use. I originally cut 6 of these, but I'm only going to use 4. I do want it to be nice and sturdy, so I'm gluing 2 of them together. And then I have a 2-inch acetate circle. So normally for an emergency sentiment, we mat it on a 2-inch like cardstock circle. The opening in these Magic Iris pieces is 1 7/8 of an inch. So this 2-inch fits beautifully. You wouldn't have to use acetate. You absolutely could just use like a colored cardstock or something fun like that. I'm going to set that one aside, and then I'm going to glue together 2 more of these wreaths. I want it to be sturdy in part because I'm going to punch a hole through one of those very delicate leaves to hang my string from it, but also because I just like the look of the dimension it's going to create. When I'm gluing onto acetate, I switch to my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive instead of my Barely Art. I don't use the Nuvo all the time only because the bottle I have doesn't have a fine tip. In fact, it got so clogged I had to like cut the tip on that, but it grabs onto slick surfaces better than the Barely Art. It's just a thicker glue. So while I was talking about glue, I combined my 2 sets of doubled up wreaths, and that acetate is sandwiched right in the middle. So there is a little bit of a well as it sort of moves down into that acetate. And then I'm going to show you just like a quick montage of adding the flowers onto the wreath. It's super simple, very self-explanatory. A lot of them are layering on top of a piece of the wreath that is identical in size. I wanted to show it to you, but I didn't want you to have to sit through something that took a long time. I think in real time, it took me maybe 10 minutes, which is still faster than a card. It's also important to note that you could create this and then just add it to a card, right? Like you don't have to make a tag out of it. I'll tell you what, I haven't made a whole lot of fancy tags in my life, but I've really been enjoying this. So maybe give it a try if you're feeling like you're in a creative slump. They're smaller and faster than a whole card. And a lot of times I've been just taking a single die set and making something out of that. So I took some 2-inch foam tape from scrapbook.com and I just trimmed around it so it's a little smaller than our 1 3/4 inch circle. In the end, both sides of the tag, this big birthday wishes and then the 2 from, are going to be popped up off of the acetate, so it's slightly taller than the wreath itself. There's just lots and lots of layers of dimension. I love the see-through element in the middle. And so I am just going to use my tweezers this first time to make sure that I get it centered. That was a little trickier than I anticipated. And then I'll flip it over and I will add the other one. Instead of adding the 2 from straight to the foam tape, I am punching out just a circle of white cardstock, and I will add that using the foam adhesive. And that way I can put the 2 and from on there with my removable adhesive, and this tag can be reused really, really easily. Once I had the happy birthday on there, the second circle was a lot easier to add just because I had a visual guide of where to put it and how to get it centered. So I am going to take some silvery ribbon and I'm going to run it very carefully through the leaf that I punched a hole in. Again, I just used my CROP-A-DILE and that 1/8 inch hole punch on there. If you don't have a CROP-A-DILE, I mean, you could probably use a regular hole punch, but you might want to punch the 2 sides before you put them together, right? So you're going through 2 layers of cardstock at a time instead of 4. I've just tied a little knot at the top and then I'll trim off the ends to clean them up a little bit, and that finishes up our first tag. Or sorry, it nearly finishes up our first tag. I forgot to add my 2 and from on the back. I'm going to keep this one really simple. I didn't put anything sassy on there. Most of my family either appreciates the sassy or they've gotten over it, but every now and then I need a sweet one. Okay, so that actually finishes up tag number 2. You'll have to let me know which of these 2 tags is your favorite. If you didn't check out yesterday's video, I made some holiday themed tags using a single die set. I made 3 tags and I think they're really cute. So here's a quick peek at 2 of them in case you missed it. If you're interested in the free printable, all I ask is that you subscribe to my channel. Then you can find instructions at the bottom of the description box below the video. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll see you next time.